Hi everyone, welcome. I'm going to talk to you today about 10 tips for future Batman movies that the Batman, the new movie that just came out, screws up. It's a problem for me, this film, on many levels. It got some good things. It's got some interesting music, some good cinematography, but a lot of the other things about the film are not so good, and they're really the core of what a Batman film should be, in my opinion. So to give you a little context, I saw the movie last night. I went on a date. It was a great evening, except for the inadequacies of this film. And I asked, what should my next video be? And my date, she said, oh, you got to review this movie. And part of us wanting to review this movie is out of revenge for the problems that the movie has happened, which kind of works in the case of a Batman film. A little bit about myself. The name is Roger Fusselman. I'm a big Batman fan. Give you an idea how much of a Batman fan I have. The Batman Encyclopedia. This is not my first copy of this book. I also have the Batman Archives. These are Batman stories. This is volume 2. I don't think I have volume 1. In volume 2, to give you an idea, it has Batman stories from the early 1940s. Check it out. Detective Comics issue number 51. Ooh, is that nice? And I also have this. Had this a long time. I don't say a long time, but to give you an idea how long it is, it's actually called Batman from the 30s to the 70s. This is published, bought, and read by me before 1980. Let's put it that way. It even has some interesting things in here, such as the first Batman story, the official first Batman origin in Batman issue number 1, the first Joker story, and a bunch of other important stories, including many important high points and a few low points, too. Some cheesy Batman stories from the 50s are in here. Anyway, I have a really good sense of the mythology and understanding. I have met Dick Sprang, the #1 Bob Kane ghost artist for Batman in the 1940s, 50s, and part of the 60s, I think. I've also met Jay Robinson, one of the co-creators of the Joker, very famed editorial cartoonist. I've met Julius Schwartz, the editor that helped modernize Batman in 1964 with the new look Batman. So I've been around the block on this whole Batman concept, and I might know something. I'm probably the best expert for Batman in Seoul, where I live. I'll just say that, and we'll see where it goes. So let me give you my 10 tips for future Batman movies, because maybe it's going to be you that makes the next Batman movie when they fire Matt Reeves, if they fire Matt Reeves. Number 1, show why Batman is a hero. You don't really get a sense of why Batman is a hero in this film. What you do get a sense of is that he's dark, he's brooding, and that he's Batman. Why is he Batman? Why is he dressed up like a bat? Why does he fight crime? Why is it important for him to do that? And they don't really say why. They don't really dramatize why. Maybe he says it, but you don't get a sense that there should be this Batman doing what he's doing. Instead, you get a sense of, well, the movie said Batman, here he is. You should do it. So he's also not really the center of the action. A lot of what the Matt Reeves Batman does, played by Robert Pattinson, is he reacts to stimuli. Now this has happened before in Batman films, but the Nolan films were pretty good at making Batman the center, cause, motion, and engine of the story. So show why Batman is a hero. He's called a hero. Let's treat him that way. Number 2, pretend 1986 never happened. Here's the thing. When they make these movies, they reference superhero stories from 1986 onward. They reference the Dark Knight Returns series by Frank Miller. They reference Miller and Mazzucchelli's Batman Year One. They reference The Killing Joke, or at least wish they did. They reference Arkham Asylum. They reference The Long Halloween. And these are stories that lean on the darkness and don't necessarily lean on the heroism of the character. Or the heroism is there, but it's misunderstood as just plain darkness. So that all begins in 1986 with The Dark Knight Returns, and future stories exploit that dark aspect of Batman. What you can do instead is do stories from 1939, 1985, look at those stories, look at the high points of those stories, and choose some that resonate with you as the director, writer, screenwriter, whatever, and modernize them, make them interesting. Those periods in comics are the golden age of comics, which is 1938 to 1954. The silver age of comics, which is 1955, 56 to 1969, 1970. And the bronze age of comics, which is 1969, 1970 to about 1985. And Batman's history fits neatly in those three boxes. So what you can do is look at some of those stories and get in touch with them rather than the modern stories with the modern readers for whom have just inherited the Batman concept and haven't really understood or used it. Number 3, have warmth and brightness. Have warmth and brightness. Have warmth and brightness. You don't really see that in the Batman. You see a lot of beautiful looking nighttime scenes or dawn scenes. Nothing ever happens at noon. We don't really get that much of a context that anything happy ever happens in Gotham City. And there's a problem there, because if it's all dark, that means the darkness is normal. It's like living in a Scandinavian country for 6 months. It's all night for 6 months. I don't know if that's how it works, but that's my understanding. So what that means is that the darkness doesn't mean anything because there's no light to deal with it. So we want some warmth, we want some brightness, we want some happiness. Bruce Wayne, you never get the sense of his positive character. I'm Bruce Wayne, I'm a millionaire. Hey, you look nice. You want to go on my yacht? You don't get the sense of that fun Bruce Wayne. The Robert Pattinson Bruce Wayne is dark, brooding, emo, has hair in a weird way. It's not really the Bruce Wayne that exploits the warmth and brightness that we need. Alfred Pennyworth, Batman's trusty servant, does not bring much of his own warmth, sense of humor to the story. So you don't really get enough light for the darkness to mean anything. You need to bring that in, and let's face it, Batman's fighting for a day when things are less dark. So his goal is to make the world a bit more sunlit. We just appreciate that he does it at night. Number 4, have stakes for the hero's values. What are Batman's values? Identify them, understand why he believes them, and then test those values. We don't really do that much here. In fact, at the beginning of the movie, his attitude is, I don't know why I'm doing this. I don't know if I'm making a difference. What the hey? And, don't put him on the psychiatrist's couch at that point. No. Instead, own his values and then test his values. Have values for your hero, for your protagonist. And then test those values. Understand that Batman has nobility. He's not just somebody in a costume. There's a code of ethics. He's a paladin of some kind. And what you should do when you're making these is to project that and then test it. Give him situations where he may have to compromise his values or where he's going to be conflicted. Number 5, be economical in storytelling. This movie goes on for 2 hours and 56 minutes. It is a test of your patience and a test of your bladder. It is not recommended if you have certain bladder conditions. So it goes on forever. They're emphasizing a lot of the atmosphere, very little of plot compared to the atmosphere. It's too long. There are too many characters. Catwoman, played by Zoe somebody, doesn't do much. She doesn't really have that much impact. Now in the comic books, in this kind of storyline, a la The Long Halloween, she has a clear story with Carmine Falcone, the crime boss, and one of the crime bosses in Gotham. And there's a more interesting story there. But in this movie, she's kind of an add-on. Probably to add a little eye candy to the scenery. Mistake. You keep it all male. You don't have to throw sexiness in Lord of the Rings, and you don't have to do it here. Save Catwoman for later. Too many characters. We already have three major villains. You don't have to throw in Catwoman in the mix. So save Catwoman for later. That was my attitude about the whole thing. Be economical. Get to the point. It's your first movie. Don't give us that heavy a feeling. Number 6, meet enough bat expectations. So what's the coolness of Batman? I didn't really feel like it was cool to be Batman. The audience should feel that way. The audience should, yeah, I want one of those cars. Yeah, I want those gadgets. Yeah, I want to be able to punch that guy. Yeah, I want to be able to do those backflips. Yeah, we don't really identify with the coolness of Batman's character. So that's an important expectation that the audience has, because the audience has loved these comic books and has loved the better versions of this character, which this isn't. So have the key characters there. Exploit more Alfred. Have more Bruce Wayne as the billionaire playboy that's bored. Show us more of the superhero life. Show us more of the cave. Give us that coolness. That's what we're looking for. Now, you don't have to go camp. You don't have to go into the Batman TV show of the 1960s. But even if you did that and updated it in a cool way, that would be more appreciated. Number 7, have an enjoyable, satisfying ending. At the beginning of the Batman, Gotham City is in a bad situation. At the end of the Batman, Gotham City's in a worse situation. Batman didn't do his job so well. Now, did he? And that's not a satisfying ending. So Gotham should be better at the end than at the beginning with the problems that Batman deals with. Batman should triumph at the end, and there's no real triumph, and the villains should lose. Now, for a sequel or for the third movie, maybe you can experiment with that. Maybe you can add more of a down note kind of ending, but not in the first movie. Cut that out. Okay, number 8. This is the most controversial one of what I'm going to say. Don't sacrifice art to politics. An art form should stand on its own, should be its own thing. It shouldn't have to apologize with a message for something that's important. None of us really like product placement in movies so much. There's Superman and Superman 2 stopping that truck from moving, and it says Marlboro along the side of the truck. Well, that kind of takes us out of the movie, right? Because we have this commercial for product placement. The movie isn't an artistic experience. It's meant to serve this higher need, and this higher need is to sell cigarettes. The same with casting. Zoe Kravitz is specifically cast as a black character. At least people make a big deal about that. The actor I don't remember his name, the actor who plays Commissioner Gordon. These are both white characters, but they're played by black actors. And sometimes that works. Sometimes that has worked in the past. But you really should know what you're doing, and I don't think he knows what he's doing in here. There is a distraction from the actual story. When you go, boom, here's that white character played by a different actor. It takes us out of the story, makes us compare it to the book in a way, it's original, in a way that doesn't help the narrative of the film. It also shows a little contempt for the original, that you're going to use these characters, these stories, for this other message that really has nothing to do with the characters or with the story. And that's contemptuous. Don't do that. Now, 2 things. One, sometimes it's worked. If you saw the Fantastic Four, you'll notice the character of Alicia Masters, a white character, was played by a black actress. But it worked perfectly for the situation that she was in with Ben Grimm, the Thing, in there. It made total sense for this character, his blind character, to look past his appearance, and for him to look past her appearance if he was the kind of guy who at first might not get involved with a black woman. So it made sense, perfect sense, to cast Alicia with a black actress. And it's not that important of a character, so it elevates the character, I think. There's probably a couple other examples like that too. So exceptions can happen, but know what you're doing before you do it. Don't jump into it like that. Another thing is, yes, I read Batman Year One. I know that the Catwoman in those 4 issues of Batman 404 to 407 was black. I know that. And Zoe Kravitz does pretty well. I also know Eartha Kitt is black. So you can count this movie as having 1.5 changes from the original race, if you want to put it that way. However, that's not so canonical. My point is bigger, that we don't want to distract too much from the message of the film. We want to keep the unity of the film. If you can pull that off, fine. No problems with Zoe as a person. Number 9, don't be concrete bound. People get concrete bound. They get fixed in the design of these movies into making sure the set piece is right, all these action, and that there's enough fan service so the fans click with things. That's not so important. What's important is that the overall theme, the overall ideas, the overall values are dramatized. We can lose sight of that when we're doing these kinds of films. So those bigger values, not the concrete things, but the bigger values, should be opened up. That's why I say don't be concrete bound, because a lot of people will do that, and they'll forget why they're here. They'll forget why the story matters, and will get lost in these details that don't really add up to any values. So that's number 9. And I put don't be concrete bound here because I think a lot of times minority casting is done as a way to kind of mix things up. Well, we'll change the overall appearance of the character, when really, no, you didn't understand the character. Understand the character in a new light and exploit that new light. And that way you can bring a new interpretation to Catwoman, to Jim Gordon, to whoever the character is. Number 10, earn respect. Earn the length. It does not earn the length for things to end poorly. For things to end well, you've earned the length of 2 hours and 56 minutes. Don't assume Batman in the title is enough. Just because it says The Batman doesn't mean you can do anything with the character. With whatever you do with these characters, you have to earn it first. And the Marvel movies did that. They didn't approach Iron Man as this established property and we can kick back and relax and let the product sell itself. No, they really invested work into it. And you should do the same thing with Batman too. Assume that the world out there doesn't care for this character and you have to breathe new life into the character. Not new life contradictory to its old life, but new life that makes sense for the values of Batman. So you have to earn respect. And that way, when you get to movie number 2 or movie number 3 in the franchise, then you can experiment with these things. Then you can experiment a little bit more with non-traditional casting, or with darkness, or with having an ending that's downbeat, or with a serious crisis of values with your protagonist, or something like that. But to earn that, you really have to have that first movie down pat, where it has a satisfying ending, and other things like that. Okay, so let's run through those. Show why Batman is a hero. Pretend 1986 never happened. Have warmth and brightness. Have stakes in the hero's values. Be economical in storytelling. Meet enough bat expectations. Have an enjoyable, satisfying ending. Don't sacrifice art to politics. Don't be concrete bound, and earn the audience's respect. So those are things to continue. Now I want to remind you, Batman debuted in 1939, Detective Comics issue number 27, The Case of the Chemical Syndicate. Story by Bill Finger, stolen from a Shadow story, but story by Bill Finger. Art by Bob Kane, stolen also from the same story. So, it's been around for a while, and there's a huge range before 1986 to exploit. Exploit it. Learn from it. Understand it. And you can make a pretty good Batman movie. That's my attitude about this movie, and I await your comments about how it should work. Thank you, Bill Finger. Thank you, Bob Kane. Bye-bye.